Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota, Florida writes in, anyone with experience enabling sign language interpretation view in Zoom. Is this different than just bringing in ASL interpreter and spotlighting them in addition to the speaker?
Alex?
Yeah, I believe that we've only seen it a little bit. We haven't used it as much because we do it in a different production process. We bring those ASL interpreters in and we design a show around it, the way kind of like what we do with office hours. And so so that's kind of how we approach that model. But the ASL, my understanding is the ASL interpreter gives them, I believe it's either I think it either is a floating window or it's a separate window, but it is definitely a much better experience. If you are looking for ASL and you're using the vanilla Zoom, you should absolutely be using this feature as opposed to just spotlighting them next to it. It is definitely designed, and I know we've gotten some feedback from folks that do ASL that it's a pretty good implementation.
And Andy Carluccio did chime in the chat. It is a resizable window and a much better experience than just a multi-pin or a spotlight. Go ahead, Chris.
You know, there was a Google event a year or two ago where they, because it was Google and YouTube, they had a user interface in the YouTube where you could, I think it was you click something on screen even, and it was like you were running the control room, and it took the program, scaled it back to like 75%, had a little artwork, had a little box for the ASL person. And it was literally, you got to control when you saw it and didn't see it. It was really cool. I don't think I've seen it since.
Next question.
Aaron Kuth writes in from St. Louis, Missouri. Any updated recommendations for real-time captioning services?
Alex?
The leader in this is AI Media. AI Media, they bought the hardware EEG. So EEG is what that standard is, but AI Media also has pass-through services that you can stream basically to them, and they'll stream back out for you to another place, and they'll add those real-time into it. There are some other players, but we haven't really seen anybody do it at the level. So if you're looking for trying to find something less expensive, I don't know what that answer is. If you're looking for what the industry standard is, AI Media and EEG are the standard. They have for what we use them for is that you can have an EEG hardware, and then you tie iCap to their cloud-based AI. So you can either, with iCap, you can attach it to a person who's a stenographer who is sitting there typing away, or you can attach it to AI, and it will do all that processing, deliver it back, put it into the line 23 or line 21 of your SDI signal, and push it out. And so it's re-embedding all of that. But there's all kinds of other ways of making that work. You can point it towards HTTP inputs. You can point it towards a variety of other things. And so CART systems, that type of thing. But AI Media / EEG is the industry standard for that. I don't see that. The market is, I don't see that market being shaken up very soon, because most of the other people that are doing AI are, they're not doing it at a professional level, like with the professional hardware interfaces. And so I think that makes it challenging.
And James in the chat mentioned streamtext.net. Do you have any experience with that one, Alex?
Yeah, streamtext.net is, you still have to supply it. I mean, my understanding, unless they've changed, and they may have changed it, but streamtext.net is something that we use oftentimes as an intermediate. So what we use streamtext for is CART systems, and so you can make it full screen, and you can put it up on a screen, and you can send to streamtext, and then oftentimes we can send to streamtext and then send to somewhere else. So for instance, if you were using the HTTP input into YouTube, you might send it to streamtext. Streamtext will then pass it to YouTube as an HTTP input. And there's other things that can do that as well, but but streamtext is a way station for our stuff. Now, they may have added AI to it, and I haven't looked at it for a while, but that's, again, a web version of that thing. I think that when we're talking about professional grade, I would say that the market is 95% AI Media EEG right now. Like, I don't think that it's at a professional grade. I think as you're fiddling with stuff, I mean, you may do it. And as a streamtext, someone's going to do it, or they're going to do more and more real time. And there are services out there, especially for translation, that you feed it, you do the English texts, you feed it in, it's actually using the Google engine to generate, as many languages as you want. and can even turn those back into voices if you need to. And so I will say that the real-time captioning and then also real-time text to voice is about to explode. So this is going to change a lot. I'm a big fan. The captioning is good. I'm a big fan when you can is to provide language, language appropriate audio. And the reason for that is that it's easier to, if you want people to watch what your show is and listen to what you're saying, oftentimes that is going to be more effective. Otherwise, they're spending the whole time reading the text down below, and they're not looking at what you're actually showing them. So it's less video, if you talk a lot or have something that's very technical. So we try to get it back in, and we're still using human interpreters for most of that. But I think that all of us know that this thing's going to change, as we move forward, because I think you're going to be able to produce 60 languages in real time, with the face, in 5 years from now. We saw this from the World Economic Forum with the Argentinian prime minister or president was talking, and they replayed it, and it changed it's his voice. It is in English, and his mouth is moving correctly. Now that was probably done over 30 hours or something like that. It's probably not a real-time process, but it's coming. Like that's just processing. And so I think that everyone's going to be able to see it. It's very Star Trek-y, where everyone's going to be able to see someone else speaking in that other language, and it's going to be in their language. Will it be as accurate? Probably. Like people will say, like it's gonna, like it's hard to keep up with. It's kind of the machines will slowly. This is the kind of thing that the machine will slowly do better than a human being. Just because it's a relatively mechanical process of what they're doing. And so I think if I was a captioner, I would be a little worried. I think that in a legal sense, you still want a human being to do it because they're accountable. But I think when you look at these types of things, you're going to see this market is going to explode when it comes to AI in the next 5 to 10 years.
Next question.
Coming in from a QR code, Gabriela Chusao Mestiera in Sault Marie writes, and I'm very confused by the answers to my second try asking about HDR problems with apps like Disney, YouTube, Prime, etc. on Apple TV. Good to stand by your answers, but already said had tried those things before I asked it and it didn't work. Please help.
Alex?
Yeah, we can give you the answers based on the data that we have. So here's what we need from you to help you, hopefully, is exactly what apps aren't working, what apps are working, what model, make and model. Well, what's the model of the Apple TV that you're using? What is the operating system version? What is the TV that you're using, and is there an AVR between the TV and the Apple TV, and what is the make and model of that? So those are all the things that we would need to go any further with that. We've given you the answer that we have based on the information that you've given us.
And the one piece of information that we often forget to ask about in this situation is what is the level of HDMI cable that you're using? How long are they, and what's the HDMI number? Because sometimes that's the link that ties it all together. I was in fits over a projector once, and now it was the cable. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, Broadcom has ended free licenses for VMware ESXi and many talk of a skills gap in the future as fewer are able to learn the VMware stack. Thoughts?
Go ahead, Alex.
Supporting a pipeline is an important thing. And companies who are smart at this, I mean, if you look at the heaviest or the biggest view of this, look at Apple's, all of their school programs to teach kids to code. That is, Apple's not being altruistic. They need more coders. So they, they'll seed the entire market so they can pick out the ones that they need. And so getting kids coding at 10 is a supply issue that they're handling. Grow with Google is a supply. They are solving a supply problem. They don't care if you go to college anymore. They want to start training you when you're in high school and have you available so that you can take an entry-level job at $60,000 a year or $80,000 a year working for Google. But they are solving supply issues. And so if companies are serious about, the hard part is that, what that is that's the difference between farming and hunting and gathering. And we've talked about this in the past. People who are just doing interviews and trying to pull people in, that's hunting and gathering. and that's how everybody starts. But civilizations are built on farming. So when you see these companies going out and building education programs and working with schools, they are seeding the entire market to make sure that they have the people that they need, 10 years or 20 years from now. And so if people, for all companies, if you think that you're worried about having not the people to do it, you need to start earlier, and build programs and partner with, K through 12 to make sure that you're getting what you need on the way out.
Next question.
Jason Robert Shaw in Sarasota, Florida writes in, office hours convinced me to order a Spider X Elite colorimeter for calibrating my monitors. It arrives today. Recommendations for getting started.
Alex?
Just follow the instructions. They're pretty straightforward. It's not a hard thing to use. So you install the app, you put it on your monitor. It'll tell you exactly what to do, and you just simply the key is do follow the instructions. So it wants to have your ambient the way you normally have it. It wants to have you put it on the middle of the monitor, but you're just following the instructions as you go through that process. And so that's all you got to do. But good luck and welcome to the world of all your monitors looking the same.
And if you're doing any sort of serious color work, I would also recommend somewhere in the room, not directly at your face, maybe reflected, get a bias light, usually about 6500K, to fix your eyes' reference of what white is. Because when you stare at that screen for a really long time, your eyes will start to normalize that. So having that bias light anchors you in reality. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York writes in, I use Authy as two-factor authentication for all of my accounts. Authy desktop app is being unsetted after March 24th. Only apps on the phone work. Anyone know why this is?
Alex?
Yeah, I think that they're probably losing to Microsoft and Google, which I think both have their own authenticator apps that I think most people use. I've never heard of Authy, so I think that the two authenticator apps that I think Google and Microsoft both make ones I think that are the class standards in those. If you're using a piece of software, a lot of two-factor authentication, of course. I mean, the other one right now that's really building up is going to be Passkey. Passkey will be eventually used by Microsoft. It's already being used by Apple. It's coming up to speed on Google and Android. And Passkey is, you see a QR code and you take your phone, you point at the QR code. The phone uses biometrics to identify you, and then simply it logs you in. And so that's I think that's going to be the Passkey, and they may be slowly working their way out of this because Passkey will be the future. Of how we do this, because it's a biometric authentication, two-factor. It's going to be difficult to work around.
Next question.
Lo Cordell in Charleston, South Carolina writes in, Google released Gemini 1.5 Pro with a 1 million plus context text length. Where does this put them in the AI wars? Is it a worthy ChatGPT competitor?
Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, it is in long form. It blows ChatGPT out the water. There's nothing close to this with long form. It's ChatGPT's memory is more like just a GPT. The memory that this has, you could have a conversation with it and remember things you said 6 months ago. It can look at 3 hours of video and pull out segments from it. The data sheet on this is mind-blowing. And if OpenAI, and I believe that's why OpenAI released Sora when they did, to take the steam out of the room for what Gemini announced. Google they made a rod for their own back with the kind of over-exaggeration when they first released their product. But the white paper on this, on the 10 million token length, is game-changing for large language models. Long form. Short form stuff, it's comparable with ChatGPT 4. Long form, it's a new world with how and what it can do. We forget that Google have been at this for a long time. They kind of dropped the ball because ChatGPT came up with what they did. They have been at this for a long time. What they've released, as I said, still a white paper with Gemini 1.5, is truly a game changer for large language models with long form text. But the results, the data sheet on it is, I have to wait until it comes out and we have to use it. But just the pure data sheet, which is what you really need to look at when all of these announcements come out. That's why we're going to wait today. I believe Sora's data sheet's going to come out, and that's when the real detail is. The data sheet they released about Gemini 1.5 and in long form really is a massive change. And yes, it is better than ChatGPT 4 when that comes out for doing long form. Short form stuff we're presently doing, it's comparable with GTP 4, but long form, nothing comes close to what they've announced.
Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida writes in, Lenovo just leaked a transparent laptop, extra cool factor, and then the Twitter link.
Courtney.
I think this is a conceptual trolling picture here. Whether this is completely impractical, if it doesn't have a tactile keyboard, so it has a touchscreen keyboard, it has a transparent display, two things that are completely impractical in the real world. Of course, I see every art director on every movie getting online. We're going to get some of these. We got to have this in our latest sci-fi movie because they think that looks cool. But, the only thing it'd be practical for is in the new open office design so that you could let you spy on your coworkers while working on your spreadsheets. So you could look through the screen at your coworkers. But other than that, I don't see any practicality involved in such a product. Imagine how you'll feel the first time you drop this onto the concrete floor.
Bill.
Shatters into a billion pieces.
I thought about all those things. I also thought about the issue at first of, if I use this, do I get fingerprints smeared all over it? I mean, even if I open the lid, is it going to leave something behind? Although then I thought for a minute, my iPad Pro, which is sitting over here, I touch it all day long. And for some reason, they've managed to code it in a way that I don't get a lot of fingerprints. And it caused me to think about that. So maybe as a materials technology forward-looking thing, this has some hope for it. Maybe they're really working on these displays and someday we will get a fingerprintless, really high resolution, transparent thing for people who need it. I know for a teleprompter or something like that, that'd be pretty awesome. So we'll see.
Next question.
Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky writes in, our event production typically utilizes 1080p at 2997. However, this coming year, we have been experimenting with 1080p 5994, but when we switch, we lose camera control with the Constellation HD4ME. Everything seems to be set up to 5994. Any thoughts?
Go ahead, Alex.
I'm going to guess a couple things. One is the return signal that you may be having may not be, the cable may not be good. 1080, there's something about 3G that is super tweaky. So 6G, 12G don't have the seem to have the same problems, but 3G is a little bit tweaky and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So number one is, what are you going through to get to the cameras? Is it all Blackmagic hardware? Is that Blackmagic hardware 3G or 6G? Also look at whether the ATEM is set to SDI-A or SDI-B. So Blackmagic released a whole bunch of stuff at SDI-B. It doesn't interface with traditional hardware very well, so that there's an SDI-A that you can put in, because Blackmagic got ahead of the spec and built their stuff before the spec was complete, and everyone else came out with something else. So anyway, so that you may want to look at what that looks like. I have not used the Constellation HD. I've used the 8K, and I can definitely tell you that 1080p 5994 works with the Constellation 8K, and with every other switcher that uses that does 1080p. I have not had a problem controlling with 5994 at 1080p. So if the cameras accept it and if the switcher accepts it, so I think that it could be something in the cable. It could be the SDI-A versus B, and it could be something else that's going through that might be stripping that off, but it should work.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, many front of house and monitor engineers that tour with classic consoles like the Midas XL4 mention hands-on experience of analog mixing as an advantage. Are there any vendors offering a similar knob per function experience in the digital world?
Bill?
I know the control surface manufacturers want to do that, and I understand this. I will say, here's what I'm going to hark back to. For years, 30 years, I used computer mouses to control computers, all my computers. Since my first Mac in 1984, I used a mouse and a mouse and a mouse and a mouse. The time when I suddenly lost access to my main system because it wasn't GPU compatible with what I was going to, I switched over to a laptop, and I started frustrated because I was trying to learn touchpad computing without a mouse. And it was really difficult to get my mind out of that. Oh, I kept reaching to the side because it was so ingrained in my muscle memory. Eventually, I switched over, and now I'm really uncomfortable touching a mouse, and I want to keep my hands in the same place, and I feel like I'm much more efficient with multi-gestures and the pad. My point in this is that until you traditionally condition your brain to move to a new thing, it always feels like you're being hampered really badly when you're forced to change into an experience in the tactile world that you are not conditioned to. I mean, it's how piano players, I think, operate. They don't think about which keys. They just tactily play the music, and you want to get behind the touch and get into what you're trying to express. So if these new technologies come up, and if an engineer is working on something tactile and that's all they know, I would be a little concerned with that, because we think everything is kind of heading toward this idea of touch pads, touch screens. Touch is just becoming so much more a virtual thing rather than an analog hardware thing, that if I didn't feel comfortable with trackpads now, I would feel a little bit left behind. That's just me. I understand many people want their mouse, and they should have that as long as they want it. But boy, that change was good for me, not bad for me, and it was a tough one.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of tactile that's available on a digital board. I would never go back to an analog board. And I've owned lots of them. I've owned, I don't know, 30 or 40 analog boards and about the same number of digital boards. I would never go back to the limitations of an analog board just so I have tactile over the compressor. I think that the amount of routing and control that you have in a digital board is so much better than an analog board that I wouldn't go back. And I do believe in tactile. Like, I don't believe in just control screens. But generally, a lot of the higher end digital boards are going to let you have a screen and you can tweak those things. You don't usually, someone's going to probably correct me in the chat, but when I'm doing the show, or when somebody's doing the show and they need the tactile controls, usually in most good digital boards, those tactile controls are available to the faders and to a lot of the trims and to other things they've defined. These are the things that I need to do in real time, and that's when I need the tactile to really work. When I'm playing with the screen, my experience has been, or when people are playing with the screen, you're tweaking things in rehearsal. You're tweaking things as you set up. You're tweaking everything to get it just right. And you have an enormous depth of control there to work with. In a place that I just don't think you have in the analog boards. But I think that you get that mix. So if you're looking at the higher end boards, I think that you have those tools there, the tools that you need. And I think that folks who have been around for a long time oftentimes have trouble with new things. So I think so you're going to get those things, and they can justify them just like they justify things like 24p. But it doesn't, just because people are doing it doesn't mean it's the future.
Courtney?
I think it comes down to, mixers have been around for a long time. Muscle memory is, being used to controlling with your fingers each on a slider and being able to control a mix just by muscle memory is, okay, this is the toms on the drum, and so you notice that as you're listening, you can do it without looking at the board. A lot of the digital consoles now still have, individual faders, usually flying faders for tactile interaction with a digital board, but they'll usually have a separate channel strip that's just for adjusting all the parametric EQ, all the aux sends, everything else other than the fader levels for each individual channel. So you have to get used to taking your fingers off the controls, and because it works off, anytime you touch the fader, it selects that particular channel and then routes all the subcontrols to that separate fader strip that lets you adjust the EQ, et cetera, et cetera. All the finer controls of that particular channel then become operable on one set of knobs. So it depends on which fader you're touching, switches to that particular channel. So you have to retrain your muscle memory to do that. But I think, as Alex said, going back to analog with all the problems of interconnection of individual strips to an analog mixer and noise and all the other reasons, you probably want to not look back to the analog world for control of a mixer situation.
Chris?
This was I totally understand what Douglas is talking about. Having a knob to dive for one thing, where one knob only does one thing and it will always do that thing every time you touch it, it's very attractive. The reason it won't happen with the digital consoles is purely cost. This was my last analog console that I owned. I love this thing. 48 mono inputs, 4 stereo inputs, 8 VCAs down the center. It was awesome. Every knob did one thing. And it was heavy. It was like, 350 pounds, and we moved it all the time, but it was a glorious desk to sit at.
Next question.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois writes in, should an earlier edition M1 Mac Mini provide different significant performance from a newer model? Looking at some pre-owned gear.
Ken?
Yeah, it depends on what you're using it for. I have the original M1s up to the M2s, M3s. We've got them all here, and M1 for 80%, 90% of our tasks still works fine. It's a dream of a machine, especially if you're coming from Intel chips to the M1. It's an amazing machine. So it depends on what you're doing, what your use case is, but for the majority of tasks, the original M1 is still magnificently fast.
Next question.
Pedro Gonzalez writes in, can you show me something new in Keynote?
Go ahead, Jason.
All right. Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
We get 2.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Alex has got one
For
too.
the price of one.
Okay, so I'll give you the shift drag versus shift option drag, and I'll let Alex take it from there. So if you're going to be duplicating things, it's option drag. So you can very quickly duplicate things, select a lot of them, and then duplicate them again with an option. Then, of course, you can take them, Control or Command G to group. I think I just did that wrong. And then you can scale them proportionately if you keep holding the shift key.
Awesome. Alex?
Okay, so mine is a little bit different. So this is going to become the competition between everybody. Like it's the Keynote off. Anyway, so here's Keynote here. One of the things that you might want to have here. So I might we'll go into my shapes here. Some of the shapes that I brought in. Let's say I have a satellite truck, and so I'm going to say, oh, this is a satellite truck. Of course, I'm going to hold down my Option key and make it a little bit bigger, centered around where it is. I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to talk about it needing to go to let's say a satellite. So there we go. This is a very common one for me. And then it's going to, let's say, go down to we'll go into the shape, and I might have, we'll say another satellite truck. And so we'll do this. I might go into the arrange and say I want to flip this horizontally so that the satellite truck is on the other side because it's receiving the signal, right? And so I have this. So I have this here now. What you'll be tempted to do is you'll go into the shape and you'll go up to the top and you'll do an arrow. So you'll do this arrow here and you'll go up and you'll kind of get it here. And this is it's a little bit of a process to kind of get this right in the right place. I don't do that. I select this object and this object, and you'll see this little thing called connect. And this isn't normally in it. I will talk about another way of rebuilding this, but you can get connect. And it connects it to. Okay, so now it has a connection between the two of them here. And then I connect this one, and I connect this one. This is a little like OmniGraffle. I connect this to this, and there you go. So I have these two. Now, the nice thing about doing it this way is that I can grab those, but I can move it around, right? Because it's actually connected
No way.
to that, and I can do this, and I can select these, and we'll make them a little thicker. Now, the one mystery here is always which way the arrow is going to show up, and I can't tell you. I keep on thinking I have it right, but okay, it worked out that time. But sometimes it doesn't turn out the way I expect it to. So anyway, so you have that there. Now I can also, so there I have my little satellite here, and I can move this around to where I want, and I've got this little, you don't have a ton of control over it, but you've got this little, it's kind of a B-spline that you can kind of grab onto, and move it around. Now, the other thing I can do, of course, is I can grab these two, and I can go into my animate and go add effect, and there's an effect here called line draw, and it will do it with the little point that's there. Now, so it has a little arrow that's there, which I think is quite pleasing. And so I can grab these, and I can, put them in the right order. I can say I want this one to be, I can attach it to this one and say, I want you to do this, after that build instead of on a click. And so I can say now, if I want to preview it, it'll say, okay, it goes up to the satellite and it comes down from the satellite. And that's all in one click. So I don't have to double click on those things as you go through there. But as I'm working and I put something in, I want to change it, I can just grab this and move it. And all that animation and everything else is all going to stay the same. And that's just really, and if you want to, the way you might do this is you might grab these and you would go in and say, I want to pop them in. So they go pop, pop. Now they're going to be in the wrong order, right? So I can select this one. Note that it shows you which one you selected. When I select this, it shows you this one's the selected, or I can grab this. If I select away, if I grab it, it shows you which one is there. So I can say, I want this one to be here, and I want this one to be here and the satellite in between. I can grab these and put them above so that happened before the connection line. And then I can also say, I want these to be connected to the truck, and I want them to be with the previous build, but I want them to delay just a little bit, right? And so now when I preview the whole thing, and by the way, I'll take these, well, I'll leave this there. So I'll go, so now what I have is if I play it out here, I'll go, like these are, see, by adding that little bit of delay, it has it appears in the order that you wanted it to. So if I go back, you'll see just a little delay, so they don't all come at the same time, but I don't have to click them either. And then I can click, that this is going to go up to here, and then this is going to come down to there. And so that's that's a quick way to throw little examples together when you're trying to show people how some kind of process is going to work. So,
and the winner is Alex Lindsay in this round. Nice try.
It's on, Lindsay. Next time.
There we go. So anyway, hopefully that helps. It really does. A lot of it is that as you start to build these, you want to make them as, these things all just add a little bit of fit and finish, and it makes it much easier. And what you want to think about is, what do I actually need to click, or what can I rehearse? And I can just click it and it'll do all the things that I want it to do. And by adding those little bits and pieces into it, it makes it work nicer.
Then just as one more help me enrich your life tip, on Mac OS, if you're thinking, man, Alex did that really cool thing where he connected the lines together and you don't know what menu it's in, or you don't have it in your menu bar, every single program has a menu bar in the Mac, right? Every single program has a help menu. You can search the help menu for what the menu items are and quickly find exactly where that lives. And then you can be extra special like Alex, right-click on that toolbar and then hit Customize Toolbar. Go ahead, Alex.
I should have showed that. So if you want to do this, you hold down the Option key or the Control key, click on it. You'll see Customize Toolbar.
We're looking at you still, Alex.
Oh,
and you're not presenting.
Sorry, we'll do that again. And so you'll have, if you right click or control click on the bar, you'll see that I customize toolbar, and that's where you'll see all the options. And I've got some spacers in here, and then I have the different things that I may want in there. So I can drag, flip horizontal, which I used earlier. I'm like, I use this all the time. And I can, add those to it or other things like that. So this is where you customize that toolbar so that it has what you want there. So there you go.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, many are returning their Vision Pros because of it being uncomfortable to wear. Would the in-store demo be good enough judge for user comfort? And he includes a link to The Verge.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Maybe because in-store comfort, they fit you for your own Vision Pro in the store, and they give you a light seal that is supposedly designed to fit your face. One of the reasons listed in the Verge article is light seal, so that problem could be addressed with the proper fitting at the store versus getting it at home, ordering it home with doing the measurement over the internet. I think the reason a lot of them are being returned have really nothing to do with the reasons that are listed in there, which is light seal, eye strain, because your eye strain, using your eyes to select stuff as opposed to a mouse or pointing in the air at something, touch activation. The heaviness of being on your head too much, the technology is not quite there yet because a lot of people have complained about the camera resolution to generate the AR is not quite high enough to be real world workable, to work with, to be able to see stuff through the cameras that you can focus on and operate without having to take the headset off. Spatial computing is too lonely because it isolates you with the rest of the world. It's too expensive, of course. And a lot of people just wanted to try it out, which I think is the main reason a lot of people are returning it, because they wanted to get a lot of clicks on their YouTube channel. So they wanted to be the first ones to get out a review of the Vision Pro before anyone else, collect the things, and then they could return it, collect the clicks and then return it. So I think it was just kind of a greed in that respect. And I think a lot of people are discovering that, there's not a lot of practical things other than watching movies on an airplane that you can use it for that justify a $3,500 experience. And so that's why I think a lot of them are coming back. But good news, if you do want to get one, you can probably find some cheaper ones at as refurbs on the Apple Store very soon. They're probably coming to a store near you. One other thing I want to say is maybe they've overlooked, and maybe they've got it in development, is used for quadriplegics. For accessibility, it could become very useful if they could work out the ability to use your gaze to select something and double blink to click. That I haven't seen that yet, but that could be a good use for such a device in a vertical market.
Ken?
Yeah, just before I answer your question, just realize that any of these news articles, anytime you put a news article that, dinging Apple, you get more views and clicks, and you see that on YouTube all the time. It's frankly, it's quite boring, but anyway, you write a negative story about Apple and you get clicks. So I wouldn't take as read what The Verge is saying about this. But anyway, to answer your question, Apple have a great return policy. So no, I wouldn't just take the 20 minutes or half an hour you have in the store wearing it. You can take it home, use it for a length of time, and then you'll have a much better judge of whether it's right for you, and then you can return it.
Alex?
To answer the question specifically, the 20 minutes is probably not enough. In the first 20 minutes of using it, I actually felt it to be really uncomfortable. And even in the first couple hours, I couldn't quite I couldn't settle into a space that I liked on my face. And so I felt like it was dragging on my face. I felt like it was doing a lot of things. And I will say that after multiple days of use, I got very comfortable with it. And so now I just throw them on. I throw it on all the time. And I just kind of, the biggest thing is me deciding I take my glasses off. I'm getting my lenses. I just had to get new prescriptions for them so that I could just throw it on. So I'm still got to put my contacts in when I want to wear it. But I have found it to be very comfortable and not really problematic in that area. And I do use it a fair bit. And I think that the biggest problem that I have is that I forget that it's, I'm doing stuff and I'm just kind of in the zone of doing stuff. And I forget that it's been like hours that I've had it on. I think that, I think that Mark Zuckerberg, of course, had his comment on it. I use the Meta the Quest every day. So I still have the Quest and I still use it. I exercise in it. It's one of my many exercises. I get bored really easily. And I find that Supernatural is a lot of fun. And I've gotten kind of addicted to Supernatural. And so I use it. And I think that his statements are not invalid. I think that they're accurate to some degree. But I think it's the difference between Apple users and others, or Apple development and everyone else. What Apple has figured out is this last little bit of, we were talking about taste, and also the integration. I will say that this is a real payoff. I tweeted this out this morning because I just noticed it. The real payoff for me is the fact that I have bought 600 plus movies on Apple for my Apple TV, and I have 600 panoramas that I shot with my iPhone, and I have all these things that I've shot over the last decade. And so for an Apple user, there's a huge payoff. If you're someone who doesn't want to be caught up in the Apple ecosystem, and you've done a little bit of stuff over here, and you don't really use messages, and you don't use notes because you're using Evernote, and then you buy your movies on Roku and everything else, I don't know if the Apple headset is as good for you as it is for someone like me. I use some other things, but my core life lives inside of the Apple ecosystem. The headset is a huge payoff, because all the things that you normally use in a regular way are all just there and available to you, and that's really sticky. Because I put on the Quest and I play Robo Recall, and then I play Supernatural, and then I take it off. I don't spend a lot of time exploring it because I don't find most of the interfaces or most of the other stuff to be particularly compelling. And I think I think that when you have 3 million developers who already know how to do most of the coding that they need to, and already have apps that can run in these things, I just think that the Apple ecosystem is going to do really well in this environment, in a way that I haven't developed for the headset yet, but I have developed for the Quest, and it's arduous. So I think that's going to be the difference. But I think that's what Zuckerberg tends to miss is it's that final little edge that Apple brings to it, where everything just kind of works and everything is all kind of integrated and it fits into all the other things that you're doing. And if you don't buy into that, you're going to want to send the headset back. Like if you're not an Apple user, this is really an Apple device for Apple users, and there's a lot of them out there. Is it the whole world? Absolutely not. And so there's going to be a lot of people but if you take it as a unit on its own, and you're going to put it on your head and make a decision on its own, is this working? You're not going to want to keep it. If you are an Apple user that uses all the Apple stuff, that drank all the Kool-Aid and uses the whole stack, it's an incredible device that ties all those things in. So it just depends on who you are. And I think Apple's betting on the fact that there's probably 50 million people who are probably in, at least, I'm being very conservative, that are completely in the Apple ecosystem, that buy their movies from Apple, that use all the Apple products and everything else because they just don't want to bother with the other stuff. And so that 50 million is all the sales they're going to get for the next 10 years. Because they can't make them any faster than that. So I think that Apple's in a pretty good position. And sure, some people are going to send it back.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York writes in, I have some old computers, Macs and PCs sitting around that could possibly be given new life using Linux OS in production, like live stream monitoring, typing in Zoom chats, NDI Studio Monitor. Any other ideas?
Alex?
Yeah, that's actually a lot of what I use older computers for. Like this Telestrator is some very old iMac or something like that, but I can draw on it and so on and so forth. Things that don't require it. So things like music servers, being able to display just web pages that need to be up, so that I don't want to use a high performance machine on, but I want to have availability of those things. Those are great ways to use smaller PCs like the Melees. I've got them because of Courtney. It's all his fault, little PCs, and as well as older. My favorite is Mac Minis, and I love buying Mac Minis because they can be packed up in little spaces and they last seemingly forever. And I just keep on having them do simpler and simpler things.
Courtney?
Yeah, I think really there's diminishing returns of using older, big, desktop PCs for running Linux to do something when you can get something as small and light and as using a whole lot less power to do the same thing. This little Melee PC runs Windows 11 Pro. And you can run anything on Windows 11 Pro. You don't have to find the Linux versions of something to do whatever you need to do. And it has HDMI out and network in and everything you need. Right here and there about $200. So, there's diminishing returns on utilizing these old PCs. They're subject to breakdown. They're past their prime. You got to worry about spinning disks dying and power going on and off and all the problems that you have with keeping an older PC running. I think you just retire them. That's what I've done, and move along to something newer, compactor, and using a lot less power.
Next question.
Idris Haji in Fairfax, Virginia writes in, what has your experience been when using a Wacom tablet for annotating and drawing? I'm looking to purchase a Wacom Pro for math faculty who annotate his PowerPoints using the Windows touchscreen on the laptop, which is now broken.
Go ahead, Ken.
You didn't state whether it's the model with the, because there's Wacom Pros which don't have a monitor screen in, and Wacom Pros do. I have both. The one without the screen, of these ones, as soon as I got one with the screen, yeah, really, really, it totally changed on how I use it. So yes, if it's the Wacom Pro with the built-in screen so that you're seeing what you're drawing on there, then yes, it's a good choice.
Speaking of annotating and drawing, Alex?
Yeah, I love using the Wacom tablet for that. So I've been using, obviously, a Wacom tablet, a Cintiq, and now what's called a Wacom One. So the Wacom One is I think they realized there was a huge market that was building up underneath their lowest cost version of the Cintiq. And so they released the Wacom One where they took out some of the buttons, but it does exactly what I needed to do for annotation. It's about $380 or $400 or something like that. So it's much less expensive than the entry-level Cintiq, which has some more sensitivity, but for this kind of thing, you don't need it. And so I will say that I've tested quite a few tablets, and I definitely like the Wacom better than the other options. I find that the fit and finish is a little better, durability is better, and sensitivity works better. It's just the performance is better overall. So I would definitely recommend the Wacom One for these types of things. I would never go back ever to like annotating on a screen that people can see. That's like cave drawing. Like you're turning your back to your audience. Like, why would you do that? Like that is serious, like old fashioned thinking. Really, you want to be able to talk and be able to just draw while you're still looking at the person that you're talking to. There's not really any reason to do the whole that. I think that's the problem that Microsoft had, is that at some point people who are forward thinking enough to think about a monitor instead of a whiteboard also were forward thinking that this is weird. Like, why are we continuing to take the past and insert it into the future? And so I think that, whiteboard, I would never go back to a whiteboard either, or a blackboard, or anything else that I have to turn my back to my audience. And so I think that for that, the Wacom tablet is very, 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 very effective, at doing what we're talking about.
Next question.
Kay Schultz in Los Angeles writes in, is anyone using no-code databases for inventory, staff management, project management, or the like? Airtable, Monday, Notion, SmartSuite, etc.
Go ahead, Alex.
I have to admit, when we've done this, this is old-fashioned, but the only one that's really worked for me in the past has been a local copy of FileMaker. So I know that there's a lot of these on these ones, but when we've done all these things, we've tested other things, and we've had, we have some kind of internet issue, we have something else, and again, the FileMaker one is a really easy one to work with, and I know that that's old-fashioned, and so it's just, and so but I don't have as much. I know a lot of people that we've worked with have used Airtable. So Airtable has been the one that's probably the most popular of what we see. But I will say that I find that we're always dealing with some kind of online issue with Airtable, like enough that I just go, I don't know. It's much easier to share. In the same way that I use numbers when I'm doing spreadsheets on my computer, and I still use Google Sheets when I'm interacting with anybody else. And so I think it's the same thing. That interaction is really powerful. If I'm only going to need it locally, then I'm still using FileMaker.
And think about bringing this question back for a Monday. We have usually a more business-focused panel on that has a lot of experience with these kind of tools. So that's always fun. Anyhow, what a great Friday. There's sometimes on this show where it feels like, man, we get to talk about the bleeding edge of what's new and what's changing our world. And it's just a pleasure. Wanted a couple thank yous. Thank you to our audience for asking such great questions today, not only on Sora, but on all sorts of different topics. Thank you to the panel for being here and bringing all of your insight and perspective. Your life experience enriches everybody. And thank you to our crew on the back end for keeping all this show running, for cutting the show, for getting these questions in here, for helping us structure it. It's an absolute pleasure. For the Tlaloc Traversal today, we traveled 29,000 miles. That's 46,000 kilometers, which is 228 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in after hours.
In a world where bananas were scale.
Bananas with scale.
With
Scales.
scale.
Scales
Ken,
and bananas.
Ken, you have to come back more often. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Ken.
I will once I finish my. I only came on because of the
Yeah.
all out announcement because my studio is in a. I'm apologise for the.
Oh, it still looks great.
but it's
Yeah, it looks good.
we'll be back.
More, please. More, please.
More, please.
Yeah, good to have you on.
Oh,
All right, see you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
happy trails.
Chris,
Yes.
I just want to vouch for the little. First of all, I put holes in everything, and then I just put like a corkboard fabric over it. But the pole for the monitor does a really nice job. That's how I have these.
Yeah.
Floating around.
Yeah. My desk totally looks like a porcupine now. And it does have a few spare holes from where I moved stuff, but whatever. It's just a
Cover
desk.
red. Place for a coaster.
Swiss cheese for me.
Oh no,
I
was
just
it not
got
a
him.
great show?
I just got a message from a client who expects this next talk to be a tech run through.
Have
Well,
fun with that.
Cheers. Have a great day, everyone.